Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode on BFFs. I'm your host, Autumn.
I'm Allie.
And today we have special guests, Jonah and Cal. For those who don't know us, we're currently juniors at De La Salle Institute. On this show, we talk about prominent issues in American society revolving around the economy. For the past few weeks, we've been researching America's working class and how hard or easy for some it may be to get ahead. And specifically, today's show will be centered around if Americans are hardworking or lazy.
Jonah and Cal are our fellow classmates who are very passionate about issues regarding this topic. Before we get into the questions, we have a quick word from our sponsor.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Indeed.com. You need Indeed's all-in-one employer hiring platform to post your job, interview candidates, and make offers all on Indeed. Start hiring today and post a job in minutes. It's the #1 job site, and you can hire local talent. It has reached 250 million job seekers. Indeed is a great way to find jobs that fit in your life. You can put in your age, time, availability, and preferences, and you can find hundreds of jobs in your area. They will continue to notify you when new jobs open up over time. Now we have Cal and Jonah. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So I'm just gonna ask you guys straight up: is America hardworking or lazy?
I believe that America is not lazy, and the reason that most people don't have jobs is due to their education or because they have a job that isn't paying them enough to get above the poverty line.
Yeah, I'd have to say most Americans are hardworking. Many have families that try and work countless hours, but end up not earning enough money to provide for them. So, I think most of Americans are hardworking, but
I would have to disagree, and I believe America's lazy because a lot of people tend to try to do the bare minimum for what they get paid and get away with it, and without any consequences or anything.
Well, I will have to agree with Allie on this one and say that Americans are both hardworking and lazy. America's work ethic is based on the opportunities that we receive. Those who aren't presented with as many opportunities to get ahead are less likely to be hardworking because ultimately it won't pay off in the end. So those are who are actually receive those $1 million opportunities to actually get ahead in America. Sometimes they don't even take advantage of them. Okay, so that just leads into our first question. Does your education decide your economic status?
I would have to say yes, but it's not the only factor. For example, people with like a GED versus a bachelor's degree are going to have the opportunity to have different jobs that are much more well-paying. But I feel like to get those certain degrees, there's other factors that play into it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with that point. Like skill and education, all helps with getting jobs and getting, high-paying jobs.
Right.
But I mean,
it gives like the opportunity for more money, but it doesn't equate to more money. Like you still have to find a good job. Even if you have like a bachelor's degree, you might still be at an entry-level position that's not making you enough money.
Yeah, and I also think in American society today, your merit and how far you went into college and everything, it plays a big role in the type of jobs you can actually get and how much they pay.
yeah, I'd say like education doesn't solely determine your economic status, but it does play a significant role because if you have a higher education in something, you'll be able to get a higher paying job.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a lower education, you'll still be able to have a job, but it won't be as, high paying.
Yeah, so basically you guys agree that while it plays a big role, it's not the only factor.
Right.
So going into our next question, should the amount you get paid decide your work ethic?
Well, I think that like money is a big motivator for people wanting to work. If they're not receiving enough money, they're not going to want to work. So if you're getting a bad paying job, there's no motive to work harder than other people. There's no real benefit for putting in the extra time and hours when it's really having no benefit for you. And in the database Working Hard, Falling Short, Tom Waldron stated that the average annual work effort for low-income families is 2,500 hours, which is equal to 1.5 full-time jobs.
Someone could be working multiple jobs, but, and it shows that they work hard, but that doesn't show what they're earning, but they might be working multiple jobs, and that's working harder than someone who maybe just works one job but gets paid more money.
Yeah, I agree with what Cal said, mostly because a lot of people, they're working the same job, but one might not be doing, they'll be doing less, so it's not affecting them as much. So in the source that we read about work ethics, do new employees mean new work values? A lot of college students are proven to work more and harder because they're new to the job industry other than adults, and that shows that people who work harder doing the same job get burnt out eventually, and that's why adults are proven to not have that much of a work ethic than college students.
And I think this also ties back to our first question that asked about is your education an indicator of your economic status? Because typically we find those who have higher degrees and everything, they have this idea of entitlement, where they feel like that they shouldn't have to work as hard because they've already done the work in school, or they already have the degree and everything. So with those who actually don't have as much college and don't have as high of an education as others, they tend to work harder than those who do, because they have more to lose rather than the person who has the higher degree. Okay, so now I have to ask, what do you guys define as opportunity?
Yeah, so opportunity is kind of all of these specific little events that help boost someone to a goal. And that could be where you're born, your family background, what education. So from the source, 1,000-hour rule, Bill Gates had the opportunity to go to a school where his family put in a new computer lab. So that allowed him all this time to work with these computers, allowing him the skills to build Microsoft. So without that key event of his school building the computer classroom, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to found Microsoft.
Yeah, I agree. To go off that, if you have a better education, you're going to be more likely to have better opportunities in whatever job or profession you decide to go into. And if you get more opportunities from other people, it's just more connections to help you get a better job.
And I think it's really hard, and you barely see people go from the ground up, and a lot of celebrities had that support when they were younger to grow to who they are now, and it's really hard to go from that rags to riches type thing without help in your youth.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. That's a big part, is your family's financial background is a really big reason why people don't get the right opportunities. If you again had a bad education than other people because your family came from a less fortunate background, that can lead to less opportunities in your life.
And it can give you the upper hand over someone else who doesn't have as many opportunities as you do, which ultimately helps you in the long run.
So I think we can all agree that opportunity is basically the amount of chances that you get to actually get ahead, or to actually chase a dream or a goal that you have.
So our next question is, how hard is it to make a living in America?
So it's pretty hard to make a good living in America, because people could work, a bunch of jobs, but those jobs might not pay out well. So from nickel and dime, Caroline conducted her own self-experiment where she worked multiple jobs, and she found out no matter how hard and how many jobs she worked, it was still challenging to achieve some financial prosperity in her life, and she wasn't able to really provide for herself that much.
And on top of that, when she did those experiments, she still found that it just wasn't enough with the prices of housing, and then the prices of gas and food. She kind of did sort of calculations for everything, and she realized that her paychecks weren't even enough for her to survive. And on top of that, I remember her making references between the rich and the poor, and how the poor were able to take over and buy a lot of the land, whereas the market kind of increased to where they were kind of being charged prices of, I want to say per se, like a rich person, and they weren't able to afford it, but they had no other choice because they had no other place to live. So that just shows me like how society is just it's constantly increasing in the cost of living. However, it's also like it's not increasing in wages and things of that nature.
Yeah, and a lot of people are working like these hard, like some might not be hard, but some are like really hard on the body and like the mental health and stuff. And it's like not worth it because they're not getting paid as much as they should to even like be able to live and provide for their family. So moving on to our next segment, we're going to talk about our own personal experiences in the workplace having to do with laziness or bad work ethic. First, Cal.
Yeah, so over the summer of 2021, I had bad experiences with the other bus boys that I worked with. So the whole like situation with payment is we would all get the same split of the server's tips at the end of the day, and basically it didn't matter like where you were working. So we had two different sections. We had the downstairs patio and the upstairs one, and the upstairs was never really as busy as the downstairs because downstairs you would always have to run food, clean most of the tables. So lots of people would just stay upstairs, not do any work. They would never come down for food, and at the end of the day they would still get paid as much as me, and that really made me not feel motivated to like work as hard as I did. So there was definitely that laziness with other people, and it kind of brought down the whole attitude for everyone.
I kind of have the same experience too now at my current job because we're set up in certain spots of the like location we're in, and when somebody's not doing their job, it's making me do 10 times more than them, and we're getting the same amount of pay. So I've contemplated on quitting many times because I could find another job that's paying more, and I'm doing less and working with better more hardworking people. So I was just way less motivated to work, and now I'm just don't really know if I should stay or if I should go.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going off of your point back to what I was kind of saying, like if no one's coming down from that like upstairs area, I was the one always having to like run food everywhere and also clean off the tables, throw out the trash. It definitely makes you like work harder when other people are lazy around you, and sometimes then when other people are working harder, you might slack off a little more because you're like, well, I deserve it. If all these other people are getting paid more to do nothing, why shouldn't I?
So in a way, it's motivating, and not rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. And for you don't really get a lot of recognition from like our managers and our bosses and stuff, and there's not a lot of like pay raises or like benefits or just anything in our favor when we're actually doing the work that we should be doing.
Okay, so our next question is, what causes laziness?
For one thing that causes laziness is not having benefits that makes workers less motivated. And an example from working hard and falling short from Costco Chief Executive James Sinegal. He says, "We think it's good business to hire good people and give them good jobs and good wages. Jobs with good pay and benefits are good for both workers and employees." So it shows like if workers aren't provided with any incentives, it'll make them less motivated to do their work.
And also going off that, just working so hard and and your work not paying off, it can ultimately become like discouraging. And we read this in the 10,000 hour rule. Gladwell wrote that you can't be poor because if you have to hold down a part-time job on the side to help make ends meet, there won't be time left in the day to practice enough. And when he said that, he was just saying how you can't be poor and trying to master a skill that'll actually make you that'll actually cause financial prosperity, because you have to work so many hours just to make a little bit amount of money versus practicing and mastering a skill that'll make you a lot of money, but you don't have that chance because you're poor and you have to work and you have to provide and you have bills to pay, and most of the time you have children to take care of. So it's honestly a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, especially if you're in the lower class, it's probably you're more likely to be lazy because you're not seeing any progress in your finances.
And also, when you don't have like Heaven said, she said, when you're working so many jobs or so many hours, you're not gonna have time for to practice a specific trade. You're also out of the loop of your life. You're not with your family or friends, and that could be really bad for your mental health, which could also affect your work ethic in work. So.
I feel like on top of that point, if people are working very hard, they're working 2 jobs, trying to make ends meet, they might get burnt out after a while. Doing that much hard work for that long of a time can make you feel really bad about your scenario, and that can cause you to not want to work as hard anymore.
Yeah, like Caroline from Nickel and Dime, she worked more than 2 jobs, and although she was just doing this as an experiment, she was not living a happy life when she wasn't making ends meet with her finances.
On to that point, even though she was working these hard jobs, she still had to move because she wouldn't have had enough money to pay the rent when it came to summer.
Right.
And going off that, you're never gonna have a stable lifestyle, which you're never gonna be able to move up in the in your economic class if you don't have that stable life or stable job that's gonna get you ahead in life to move on. So thinking back on all the questions we asked and everything that we talked about, what do you guys think are the solutions to the problem in the work environment?
Well, I think that companies in general should make a more incentive for people to work past just benefits. I think that definitely the pay wages need to be up, and that people need to be rewarded for the work that they pay. Because in certain scenarios, benefits aren't enough. Even if someone can take a 2-day paid leave absence, that's still not enough if they can't even afford their house.
Yeah, I'd say another solution is if the government would have accessible data on economic status of low-income families, because it really show them what they have to go through and how much they actually have to pay, and how it's affecting them more in a negative way than it is with someone who's in the middle class. So if the government was able to see that it affects low-income families more, then they would be able to work with those numbers and be able to provide more incentives to help them.
And,
Sorry. I agree, and I feel like if the government helped with more opportunities or more financial aid, something like that, it'll help families a lot and more than people realize.
Going back to that topic of opportunity, if the government invests more in more affordable education, helping people get a better degree, a better way that they can get more money in a job, that will help lots of people out, because I feel a lot of people drop out due to the expense of education.
And I just want to go back to Jonah's point about if the government see how hard it is, and as far as that, in my opinion, I think that that's the government's intent, and it's the saying to make the richer rich and the poorer poor. So I think that they know how hard it is because they make it that hard. So I just think it doesn't start. It's nothing that us as Americans are doing as far as worth ethic and making ends meet, because we're putting forth the effort. I think it's more of the government and their involvement in how much of an influence they have on how much taxes we pay, the market, and how hard it is to get an apartment or a house. And I just think there should be some type of regulation on how much the rich can buy, how much property can they buy, how much can they take over until it's, too hard for the people who aren't rich in the lower class to actually buy from them, if that makes sense. So I think there should be some type of regulations within, and I'm not saying it should be some type of regulations as far as how people spend their money. I think it's just to be some type of regulation as far as what the rich are capable of and what the lower class aren't.
So the wages from the rich and poor should not be as far away.
Yeah, I think
Like
that
they should-
financial gap should be
Right.
minimized. So, bye BFFs. Join us next week where we'll talk about whether America promotes violence or non-violence. I'm Autumn.
I'm Allie.
And we're out.